Jonathan Taylor is about to start his 2024 season on fire against the Houston Texans in week 1. We discuss the best running back starts for the week 1 fantasy season on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com. Check out the week 1 starts and sits up now already. I can't believe it's week 1, Michelle.
We have real football this week. We're only a few days away from the NFL kickoff game, and then we'll have football again on Friday night, as long as the fires hold up, right? Or don't hold up. And then more football all weekend long. So I'm so excited, but we have to help you all set your lineups now. Like, we're figuring out who to start in week 1. So we're going to start at the running back position and just go through guys that we really like in week 1, whether it be their matchup or how we think they're going to be used. We'll go through the top guys that you drafted this year, all the way through, the guys that you're taking later in your drafts. Before we get into it, I want to let you all know that this episode is sponsored by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, so let's start with those top running backs, right? Because obviously you're going to play any of these guys that you're drafting your first 3 rounds. You're not going to get crazy and sit any of them in week 1. But let's talk about some guys we think will have a great week 1 that you took early because we love their matchups. Starting off with Jonathan Taylor. Love his matchup against the Texans. I have him ranked as my running back 1 for the week. You have him as running back 3. I know the Texans were pretty good run defense last year, but not against the Colts. That's for sure. The Colts ran all over them in both games last season.
Yeah, and Jonathan Taylor is healthy. There's no contract issue. He's got Anthony Richardson back there in the backfield. Again, that's going to be a tough thing to defend in the running game for even the best defenses. I know the Texans look pretty good here. They got Will Anderson Jr., a bunch of reinforcements all over the field to be an improving young defense. But I think they're built a little bit better against the pass. And I'll just say that. They added Danielle Hunter with Will Anderson Jr. They also have Derek Stingley Jr., who's a very good corner. So that also tells me the Colts want to stay grounded with Shane Steichen. That's the better game plan if they're going to try to win this game. And Jonathan Taylor, again, the drop-off to the backup, Trey Sermon, we'll see. He's been banged up. There's just not a lot. So he's going to have to be the workhorse, touch the ball a lot in this game, see a fair share of work and routes run in the receiving game as well. So this is why I like Jonathan Taylor to have a big season. They're going to have to lean on him a lot. There's some questions about other receivers that are not Michael Pittman Jr. So again, they're going to lean on Taylor quite a bit. He's rested, ready. I think he can have a big season. We know what kind of ceiling he has. He gets started here in this game to kind of get out of the gate and work toward my bold prediction of being the RB1 on the board for the second time in 4 seasons.
Yeah, and Jonathan Taylor is a Texans killer. He's averaged 135 rushing yards per game in his career against the Texans. That's the most by any player versus any opponent since 1950. He's had at least 140 rushing yards and at least 1 rushing touchdowns in each of his last 4 matchups against the Texans. These have been his fantasy points in half PPR. 27, 26, 24, 29. This is why he's my running back 1. Think they're going to lean heavily on him. Now, we're both also very high on James Cook this week against the Cardinals. It's just a juicy matchup, right? Already we're excited about his usage with Joe Brady as the OC because we saw how much he averaged nearly 20 touches a game with Brady as OC last season. And the Cardinals allowed the most fantasy points to the running back position last year. They stink on paper, right? Their defense, it should be a heavy scoring game, you would think, on both sides. So, yeah, all in on James Cook in week 1.
Yeah, and you look at the Cardinals, their front is very weak at this point. Poor Jonathan Gannon, he's a defensive-minded coach. He's there in year 2. They've not fixed that part, so that means good stuff, and that's why we like Kyler Murray on the other side because they're going to be from behind and passing quite a bit. But the Bills are going to be front runners in this game, and that means James Cook is going to see the ball a lot. I think they'll mix in a little bit of Ray Davis. They're not going to get the rookie too overwhelmed in his first game behind Cook. So Cook should see his 15 to 20 touches, be very effective with that, have a good chance to score. Definitely has a good chance to break into triple digits in scrimmage yards. So there are a lot of things that are going to work well. So I could see him getting like 70 to 80 receiving yards, like 30 to 40 receiving yards, and maybe a score. And that would be a very nice day for him.
Yeah, I expect him. Maybe even running back 7's too low for him. I might be moving him
Yeah.
up all week long. Now, we have a little difference here with Travis Etienne. I wanted to bring him up because I am at running back 8. You have a little bit lower at running back 15, but I actually really like this game for him. It's not so much that I love the Dolphins matchup, right? It's not like they're super easy to run against, but I do expect this to be a very high scoring game. It's in Miami, and I think at this time Trevor Lawrence is still going to have to lean on ETN in the passing game, right? He has all these new weapons. I think it's going to be a very heavy ETN game. I think he's going to get a lot of touches here. And obviously with him, it always comes down to touchdowns, but with the Dolphins are going to score points at home, right? The Jaguars are going to have to put up points. So I do think there's going to be a good amount of scoring opportunities for him. And he's a good running back. He can break off runs. Like I think as long as his matchup's not extremely difficult in any given week, he should be ranked as a top 10 guy.
Yeah, I like him. I just don't like him as much as you. I like him as the higher end RB2. You like him as a back end RB1. So not too much difference. 7 spots. You have him at 8. I have him at 15. I think I just like a bunch of guys ahead of him. So, and we'll talk about one of those guys here in a moment. But yeah, Etienne is good. I think it comes down to, do I feel the vibe of him scoring a touchdown? I didn't necessarily feel it. The Dolphins, interesting front issues that they're having, a very good pass defense that's developing, but they do have some issues up front without Christian Wilkins. You left in free agency, the Raiders are trying to keep some guys healthy up front. So they can be run on here in this game. I'm just not sure what Etienne's volume and effectiveness will be right out of the gate. So moderate expectations for him to still be a strong play here. I mean, top 15 is as solid as it gets to play running back. You just have him maybe having a spike week.
Yeah, and it'll come down to the touchdown. So I get it. Like if he doesn't score the touchdown, he's not going to be a running back 8. But if he gets in even at least once, I do think he's the top 10 running back this week, just based off of his usage. Now, another guy we expect to get a lot of touches in week 1 and have a nice week. It's Kenneth Walker against the Broncos. I am at running back 12. You have him at 11. I mean, this matchup, we have no idea what to take from it, right? With Bo Nix, we don't know what the Broncos offense is going to look like, how many points they're going to be able to put up, but we do expect the Seahawks to be able to put up points against the Broncos. Broncos allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to the running back position last year, most yards per carry allowed last year, and Kenneth Walker is an explosive running back that can really, hurt the Broncos on the ground. I expect Walker to be the lead back for the Seahawks pretty clearly, especially to start the season. Like he's going to get the majority of the work. And I just think he has a really nice day on the ground. I guess why we don't have him higher is because he's not super involved as a pass catcher.
Yeah, and the Seahawks are going to be an up-tempo offense here with Ryan Grubb taking over from the University of Washington. They're going to have a lot of plays. And I think they're going to have a lot of pass plays as well. I mean, they want to move the ball quickly. DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith-Njigba, Tyler Lockett get the ball downfield here out of the hands of Geno Smith. So quick up-tempo, being in scoring position a lot, and the Broncos are in defense. Still stinks. It was not very good last year. The same kind of deal that the Cardinals are dealing with up front. So Broncos were bad. They gave up a lot of fantasy points to running backs. So I feel good in a positive game script. You expect Seattle to win this game. Mike McDonald, I think, is going to scheme up some things that are going to be very confusing here for Bo Nix and limit the damage there. So the game script should also be positive here for Walker to see some touches going away in the second half.
Yeah, I'm getting higher on Kenneth Walker as well. Like, if you had to choose between Kenneth Walker or Saquon Barkley, you probably don't have to choose, right? They would probably both just be your running backs. But let's say in DFS, which one would you rather go with, Barkley against the Packers or Walker against the Broncos?
Yeah, I think I would go Walker. First of all, I guess you would get him on the main slate where you'd have to play a different type of game on Friday. And it's fine if you want to play the whole weekend game, but the main slate is rather compressed, right? You don't have Barkley, you don't have Derrick Henry, you don't have Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, you don't have Josh Jacobs, so you want to take advantage of those guys that are playing in that main slate. Yeah, McCaffrey's out on Monday night as well. So yeah, so Walker becomes a very appealing value, right, with those guys not there. But I do like Walker quite a bit, and like if you had to pick Walker or Barkley, I think I would go Walker. I know it's a little weird, but I think the Packers are going to shore up some things up front. Barkley, I just don't trust yet. I want to see what his usage is coming out. I know Walker's going to be close to workhorse here with Zach Charbonnet kind of just getting a few touches behind him.
Now, in our next segment, we're going to talk about guys you took more in the middle rounds of your drafts that you can feel confident plugging in this week because we think they're going to be a solid running back 2 play, right? Like fall in between the running back 13, running back 24 on the week. So we'll get to all of that after we hear from a couple of our sponsors. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by the Game Time app. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you with killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. I've used this app so many times because it's so easy to use. It really is super user-friendly. That makes me happy. But you also get to see images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. No surprises. You're not going to be behind a pillar. You get to see exactly what your view looks like before you buy the tickets. It also just takes seconds to buy them. 2 taps and you're set, and tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. This show is also sponsored by BetterHelp. Comparison is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. But therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have so you can start living your best life. I have personally benefited greatly from online therapy over the last few years. I've been going on a consistent basis, and it's helped me with my anxiety, with my irritability. It's taught me all like just great positive coping skills and how to set boundaries and how to just fix the biggest issues in my life, right? In a positive manner. It's empowered me to be the best version of myself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you don't have to stress because you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. This first guy we're going to talk about is a solid RB2. After I dug into it, I got a little bit more worried, but we both have Alvin Kamara against the Panthers as our running back 13 on the week. Now, a big part of this, right, for us would be that he's going to get receptions. But Kamara's last 3 games against the Panthers, they have been like stupid good at holding him to make sure he doesn't get receptions. It's like they know their divisional opponent and know how to stop Kamara. But a negative 11 receiving yards one game, 3 in the other, and 12 receiving yards. Those are his last 3 games against the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little concern about that, but I think the biggest thing that's going to happen here is he's going to have a lot of success on the ground in this game because the Panthers up front, I mean, they took a lot of hits. I mean, Brian Burns is gone. They lost one of their key players that's cleaning up, Frankie Louvu. So there's a lot lost on this Panthers defense. I mean, Derek Brown is still there, but he's kind of not getting too much help in this defense. So this front has been gutted a little bit. So Alvin Kamara may have to do it a little bit more with his rushing and red zone. And if he gets a few catches here, you're looking at an easy top end RB2 this week. So I really like Alvin Kamara. Again, the game script, one of the bigger spreads in the favor of a home team as well. So Kamara usually fares better when he's in the dome and they can put up some numbers there. So I do like Kamara quite a bit this week. But again, it's hard to go much higher than that given the history.
Yeah. Now, the Panthers did allow the most touchdowns to running backs last season in the league.
There you go.
The only thing is, does Taysom Hill steal them all, right? That could be a disaster, right? That when they get around the goal line, if Taysom Hill comes in and steals them, I think that's the only way Kamara doesn't finish, inside the top 15 running backs in week 1 in this nice matchup. Now, another guy I really like to start this week, but you're much lower on, actually. I have Najee Harris against the Falcons at running back 12. You have him down at running back 28. Now, maybe I'm just being a homer, right? Because I'll put it out there.
Yeah.
I'm a Steelers fan, so maybe I'm just being a homer, but I do expect this to be a very, very heavy run game. We saw this team lean on Najee Harris at the end of last year. He was averaging 24 carries per game over the last 3 weeks of the season. Jalen Warren's banged up, so Najee could even be a part of the pass catching, be the pass catching back in this game. He's looking great this offseason, I think, in general. I just think he's going to get at least 20 touches in this game. And if that's the case, I have a hard time putting him much further down than running back 12.
Yeah, I'm kind of just a little bit worried. I want to take a wait and see approach. The Falcons are actually pretty good defense against the run, and they have Raheem Morris, and there's some influences there that are going to make this a better unit than it was last year. So, again, I think Morris, however, will have the emphasis on the pass rush and trying to get better there in the back end and coverage as well. So, I don't necessarily love Najee Harris as much as you do this week, but I still think he could be an RB2 play. I'm down at 28 just because there's guys that I would prefer to have over him. But for a lot of you, Najee Harris is probably your second running back. So if that's the case, you put him in there because there's always a chance he can score a touchdown, even if it's a little bit of a tough matchup. I just don't like it as much on the inside of this matchup. And if Warren plays, then I think it could be a little bit more juice for him in this game. So again, the Falcons have been tough against the run. I think they'll tighten some things up here. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if these two teams have to open it up a little bit more than we think in this week one game.
It's such an interesting matchup because you have no idea what Kirk Cousins is going to look like, what the Falcons offense is going to look like. It should be a fun game, but hopefully both sides, their running backs do well because obviously Bijan Robinson is going to be in everybody's lineup and very excited to see what he can do in year two. Now, two guys you're playing over Najee Harris, both Joe Mixon against the Colts and David Montgomery against the Rams. We're both pretty high on Joe Mixon, right? About where he belongs, I think. I am at running back 18. You have him at running back 16. So we're very happy to play him as in our RB2 spot this week. The Colts allowed the second most carries per game last year, bottom 10 in rushing yards per game allowed. They allowed 22 rushing touchdowns, one of 4 teams to allow over 20 rushing touchdowns last year. Like, we know Mixon can get into the end zone. He's good around the goal line, right? So that's really what this comes down to. We expect the Texans to be putting up points against the Colts. He's going to have those scoring opportunities.
Yeah, it's typical Joe Mixon. You just drop him from a back end RB1 to an RB2 because, again, the offseason kind of worked out well. They had some buzz for Jawar Jordan, but he didn't really do enough to make the team in the end. And they looked at Dameon Pierce, who's just a backup at this point. So Joe Mixon should see the key high leverage volume and very similar to the back he was with the Bengals. He's older. He's going to be less efficient, but he's going to get the key volume that you're looking for. A few catches, a very good shot at a touchdown in this very explosive offense. So everything lines up where Joe Mixon is going to be consistent, but in a weird way. It just doesn't require too much from him if he can score in a lot of games, and I think that's going to happen. So we like him both as an RB2 solid. Now, we're pretty close on David Montgomery this week. I was RB21, he was RB23. Now, he had a pretty good game. I think what I worry about with David Montgomery is it's still like even a really good game for him right now is like 19 for 70 or something like that, and you need a touchdown, right? But every time you think he's not going to get it, they give it to him near the goal line and he scores. But what I also like about David Montgomery, the Rams can be run on for sure, especially in Detroit. And the other thing is a little bit banged up for Zamir Gibbs. Maybe we'll be careful with that hamstring injury so they don't ruin it, right? They've got big dreams here, and I think they want to be careful out of the gate, load manage Gibbs a little bit. And that's not saying it'll be like phased out and limited like he was early last season. They'll give Gibbs plenty of work, but I think around the goal line, taking that pounding, David Montgomery will be there. And I think the Lions win this game too. So again, he had good success in the playoff game, running well against this front. So I expect it again behind what Gibbs gives them with his maybe touch count here with the hamstring.
Yeah, I mean, and we got to remember this is the first game without Aaron Donald. Like, what does this defensive line look like for the Rams?
Yeah.
How do they hold up? But yeah, I like this matchup for both Gibbs and Montgomery. They both scored the touchdown in the wild card game against the Rams last year, both Monty and Gibbs. I could see that again. I mean, how many games did that happen last season? Montgomery did lead the team still with the 14 carries. Like, won't be shocked if he leads the team. It's not going to be a ton of volume, but he's going to get goal line work. He's going to be involved in this offense, and the Lions are going to put up points as well as the Rams on the Lions defense. So high scoring game for them. Now, there are some late running backs you took in your draft, and you might have been thinking, oh, I'm taking them for depth, right? But there's some guys we were saying, like, get into your lineup because we actually think they're going to be very solid flex plays at the very least in week one. So we'll get into that to close out our Monday show.
It's the time for the first week here of the season, and that means it's time to get back into Price Picks. Price Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members. Price Picks is the easiest and most exciting ways to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Price Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Say you have Bears rookie quarterback Caleb Williams. Passing yard gets you 1 win on Price Pick every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free. It's great to know that. Don't miss this deal on Price Picks because it's gone when September ends. Price Picks is the best way to get into the action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Price Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Price Picks and your picks still live. Price Pick invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So all kinds of ways to win on Price Picks. All you have to do is get in there and play, right? That's what you need to do. It's a lot of fun, easy to do that here. Look, I love getting on board here with my two guys, Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin this week. So go in on anything they're doing with their passing yards and receiving yards this week. I love that matchup there against the Buccaneers. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONFL and get $50 instantly when you pay $5. That's right. When you play $5, that's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, let's get into those later round picks that you have on your roster and maybe having some harder decisions here with these guys beyond the RB2s in a lot of leagues, depending on the depth. So let's start here, Michelle, with another guy like David Montgomery. We can't forget about him. Raheem Mostert. I have him as RB22. You have him as RB20. So I actually like him combined a little bit more than Montgomery this week. What do you like about that matchup against the Jaguars?
I mean, again, it's one of those high scoring matchups that we're predicting to be high scoring, right? And if you predict a matchup to be high scoring, then you're going to want the running back that led the league in rushing touchdowns, right? Like it's just hard to keep him out. I think you play both Raheem Mostert and Devin Achane, right? But the Jaguars weren't like a dominant defense against the run last year. Allowed 13th most fantasy points to running backs, nothing crazy. So it's not like that forces you to play them or not play them on either side. But in any game, Miami's expected to score a lot of points, which is pretty much any home game. I'm going to want to play Mostert until he shows us he just has nothing left. But for now, in the beginning of the season, I want Mostert in my lineup. His upside's just way too high.
Yeah, you make a good point. He's especially good playing home, especially early in the season when defenses can wear down in that heat. And Jacksonville's a defense trying to come together. And we know that it's very hard to play there in Miami when that heat is beating down in September. So that's great because defenses wear down against the run. It helps a guy like Mostert get going in the second half. But yeah, we have to kind of just let it play out again because we were doubting him all last year as a 31-year-old. Now he's a 32-year-old. But again, he doesn't have the same mileage, nearly the same mileage as a lot of backs that age would have because he wasn't a starter for a lot of his career. So when you look at that, they trust Mostert, and really it's kind of a 4x100 relay team on the Dolphins. For most weeks, you need Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, David Achane, and Mostert in your lineups. I mean, in these type of matchups, when you know they can score a lot of points, the over-under says they'll be good as well as the game script. So all those things line up, and Mostert playing from ahead, and will come through for the Dolphins this week.
Yeah, Mostert should be in your lineup unless your running backs are just so stacked and you have a great flex. But like, I can't imagine that, right? Like, while Mostert's healthy and on the field, get him into your lineup. Now, these two guys are ranked closely for us. Zamir White against the Chargers. I have him at running back 24. You have him at running back 23. And then Jerome Ford against the Cowboys. I'm at running back 21. You have him at running back 27. So you would prefer to play Zamir White over Jerome Ford. I would prefer Jerome Ford over Zamir White, but I do like both this week. The thing with Jerome Ford is we know he's going to get all those backfield touches. Really, there's nobody else on this team. Like they don't even have Kareem Hunt anymore, right? Like Kareem Hunt was stealing a good amount of snaps and touches from Ford last season. I don't see Foreman or Pierre Strong Jr. taking that many touches. He's going to get the targets as well. Again, Dallas on the road is not nearly as scary as Dallas at home. So I do expect this to be more of like a running game on the side of the Browns. I don't know how well the Cowboys offense will do. So I really like Jerome Ford. I think he's a very, very solid RB2 play this week.
Yeah, you got to play Ford while you can. Like, we don't know about Nick Chubb's status. Is he for certain going to come back? But still, if he comes back, I mean, Jerome Ford's value is going to really drop. So play a back like this while you can. We liked him as a front end of the season type of player. And look, this Cowboys-Browns game, two pretty good defenses, but the Cowboys were vulnerable at times against the run. I think the Browns are a lot tougher up front in that sense. So of the running games you want to look at in this game, I think you definitely look at Ford. So I think I actually like the Browns in this game because the Cowboys are losing some key pieces here and they're in transition. So I think you can see the Browns exploiting things a little bit up front with their offensive line for Jerome Ford. So I like Jerome Ford quite a bit this week. I'll be putting him in one of my lineups where I do not have Zamir White on my team. So I need to have him as an RB2. But that's why we're talking about Ford and even Najee Harris and Devin Singletary. That's why there were so many of these like later RB2s you could get. I think Zamir White, for me, I think it's just a potential. The Chargers are a little bit weaker, I think, against the run than the pass. I think you can pound on them a little bit. Zamir White will have a little bit of volume. So a little bit more avenue to points and yards in that game that I look at for the Chargers-Raiders game than I do in the Cowboys-Browns game.
I think that's fair. I don't know I can't really predict this Chargers Raiders game, right? Because the Raiders defense was really, really good under Antonio Pierce late last season. Now, it doesn't look like it should be great, right? On paper, it's not like they have all of these amazing defenders, but get it done. And Max Crosby gets it done on his own, basically, in that defensive line. Also, we don't know what the Chargers offense is going to look like either. So I do expect this. I agree with you. The Zamir White's a solid play. They'll expect this to be a heavy run game for the Raiders. Well, they try to keep Justin Herbert on the sidelines, off the field. And the Chargers allowed a lot of receiving yards to running backs last year. They're actually pretty good at stopping them on the ground. We'll see if that sticks this year. But yeah, I think Zamir White's a solid enough play. We'll just see how many scoring opportunities he has with Gardner Minshew back there. Feel a little bit more confident in Jerome Ford getting some scoring opportunities in that Dallas game. Now, one more backfield that we're interested in this week, but we're split-flopped on the guy we want. So it's Tony Pollard / Tajay Spears, the Titans running backfield, against the Chicago Bears. But you have Pollard ranked higher than Spears. You have him at running back 25, and I have Spears at running back 25. So we just kind of flip-flopped there. I am okay with playing either one that you have. I just have Pollard a little bit lower at running back 32. But the Bears were very stingy on the ground last year, but allowed just 3.7 yards per carry to running backs and just 7 rushing touchdowns. But they allowed over 1,000 receiving yards to the running back position last year, most in the NFL by far. No other team allowed more than 800 receiving yards to running back. So that's an area they really struggled in last year. And I do expect Spears to be the pass catching back on this team. I know Pollard can do it too, but I expect it to be Spears. So that's why I went more on the Spears side. We'll see who wins the goal line carries and who gets those this season.
Yeah, this is one backfield that I'm a little bit more interested in than those other split backfields, the Chargers with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, the Bengals with Zach Moss and Chase Brown. I think this one has a little bit of upside, again, because of the big thing you pointed out. I didn't like necessarily the rushing matchup, but this team is not built up front to handle these type of guys, right? That you look at their acquisitions last year, they spent quite a bit of money at linebacker. It was really a disaster because there were more guys that were making plays against the run and really not handling the passing game all that well. So when you look at it, it was Edwards and Edmonds and these guys that they brought in, they just weren't good on this level of covering people. So, and also the Bears, their strength is the pass rusher Montez Sweat. They can take away Calvin Ridley a little bit with Jalen Johnson. So I think the Titans are going to have to throw underneath a lot in this game. Shorter passes from Will Levis, get the ball out of his hands. This offensive line is a bit in transition. They've got some good pieces, but again, still breaking in a potential rookie left tackle here. So you got to get the ball out of your hands quickly. So check downs. But this is what we're going to find out, Michelle. Are Pollard and Spears more interchangeable, or is Spears a situational back, right? Does Pollard come off the field in passing situations, or do they just kind of split the workload with like series and then they get the similar opportunities to produce here? So I'm going to bet that it's going to be similar because these backs are a bit similar. So I'm going to see how that plays out, and we'll have better clarity here. So that's what I'm looking forward to most. But of all the situations where we're not sure who's going to touch the ball most, this is the one where I'm pretty good about either guy, right? If you need Spears or Pollard as a flex play, I think just go for it this week. The matchup is good enough.
Absolutely. That's it for our best running back plays of the week. We're going to get into wide receivers tomorrow. We'll do quarterbacks and tight ends on Wednesday. And then we're going to get into some, bad matchups of the week that we're a little bit nervous about. We're staying away from putting these guys into our lineups this week. We'll get into that on Thursday. But that's it for our show today, but that doesn't mean that's it for your shows to listen to on the Locked On Network, because the new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. I will actually be on the Thursday morning shows with Tyler. So if you enjoy listening to me, you'll get more of me on Thursday. But again, it's twice a day for this NFL season at least, and for the foreseeable future. Make the Mad Men Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. That is it for us today. Enjoy your Monday. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.